Welcome back. It is still Afrosport now in focus. So move to Spain next, where Thomas Partey is in the news after appearing in front of a Westminster Magistrates Court on Tuesday on a couple of charges, including 5 counts of rape and 1 count of sexual assault against 3 women. There's now news that his impending new club, Villarreal, in Spain, there could be possible issues with the fans at the club. The president of one of Villarreal's supporters club, Cesar Pena, who's the president, has opposed the club's efforts to sign the Ghana international. Pena is not pleased with the club's making of a move for a player who he says is surrounded by so much controversy. In a statement issued by him, he said, "My personal opinion is the same as that expressed by most fans on social media. I will not agree to sign a player accused of such serious crimes, and I would understand if the fans booed the player on the pitch. I hope the club takes the fans' opinion into account, as I believe this is not just a matter of improving the squad. However, whatever the outcome of the trial, if they sign him, most fans will not agree with it, even if he is ultimately found not guilty." Well, I'm glad to say that I've got Kule Faiga joining me, our in-house expert here at Afrosport. And Kule, the most important thing here, if we can bring that quote back, is the final line of what Cesar Pena has said. He says, however, whatever the outcome of the trial, if they sign him, most fans will not agree. Keyword there, fans will not agree, even if he is ultimately found not guilty.
Yes, Tolu. So, if we're going to look at this issue, it's kind of a bit dicey because if we go back to when Mason Greenwood was also embroiled in this kind of controversy, Mason Greenwood was taken to Getafe on loan, right? And he was actually able to complete his loan deal and went back to Manchester United. But we could clearly see that he couldn't go to Manchester United and was ultimately sold to Olympique Marseille. So the thing here is that I think for La Liga clubs, they don't really pay particular attention. And when I mean by La Liga clubs here, I'm talking about the hierarchy of the clubs. They don't pay particular attention to the controversies surrounding players on these kind of issues. So I think that is why Villarreal is content in taking Thomas Partey. Now, yes, some fans might kick against it because I think I remember then, like there were some Getafe fans who didn't necessarily like Greenwood, but there were some who did, and they embraced him despite all that he was surrounded by. And I think that's clearly the case here too, because if Partey gets into Villarreal and he settles in, I think maybe there will be some sections of the fans who would maybe move on and be like, oh, he's our player now. But maybe people like Pena will not. But I think ultimately the box will still stop at the Villarreal hierarchy who are going to make this deal done. And I think it just goes to show, the difference in, let me say, in culture between both Spanish clubs and English clubs. You understand? I think English clubs hold these kind of things to higher standards and will not want to associate themselves with such players, whether they are guilty or not. But when it comes to places like Spain or France, I think it's easier for these players to go there. That's why we could see that Mason Greenwood went to Marseille. And also Benjamin Mendy, even after he was acquitted, there was no club willing to sign him, but he went to Lorient in Ligue 1. So that's how I think I see the situation.
Of the player, though, I think it's very important to note that the case is currently being heard in a court of law in England. He is to be assumed innocent until proven guilty. In the cases of former players who've had this kind of issues, you talked about Mason Greenwood, who ultimately was cleared, as well as the most recent one, which is Benjamin Mendy, the former Manchester City fullback, who also was cleared, but it looked like it was too little too late. Is there an unforgiving side of football fans that maybe is a little bit harsh, especially when there isn't a verdict in this kind of case?
Well, for me, it really depends on the preference of the play of what the fans want at the end of the day. Because anything that has to do with rape and or sexual assault or misconduct is seen as very very sensitive, and to be honest, no one wants to associate themselves with such a person. We've seen where cases even outside of football circles, like in the entertainment industry, in places like Hollywood, where one accusation is enough to even tarnish someone's image. But regardless of the verdict, but I think for football, yeah, we have players um, who are very dear to fans. And, Partey is not a stranger in Spain. This is someone who spent 5 years in Atletico Madrid, and he was one of the best midfielders there. If I am not, I mean, during his time, Atletico Madrid were title contenders. They were playing well in the Champions League. He was a very key part of that Atletico Madrid squad. So, him coming to Villarreal is definitely going to be an improvement because Partey still has it in him. He's clearly not gone yet. So, that quality that he brings might actually make up for the fact that he's embroiled in controversy. And that's why I think maybe on the long run, some fans might actually be forgiving of him, especially if he does well on the pitch and hits the ground running. But if maybe he doesn't, definitely they might start bringing up all those accusations and all those things to its head. But there's still a lot that we don't know. It's still till September before there's going to be another hearing. So it's really difficult to tell where he's going to be between now and then. But I think whatever it is, it seems like he's going to be a Villarreal player that will be signed. But we can't really say what's going to happen afterwards. We need to know the verdict before we can, before we can proceed to really show where he will place himself in the team.
All right, thank you very, very much, Kunle Faiga, for joining us as always.
Thank you so much, Tolu. It was a pleasure.
All right, so that is the much we can take on Afrosport now in focus. Thank you very, very much for watching. My name is Tolu Shotade. We'll see you next time.